We begin with former President Donald Trump saying he won't oppose the release of documents related to the warrant search at Mar-a-Lago.
That's right. The former president made the declaration on his Truth Social platform. He and his lawyers have until 3 o'clock today to formally appeal. Former President Trump's comments came hours after Attorney General Merrick Garland filed a motion to have the warrant unsealed. Garland also revealed Thursday he personally approved the search on the former president's Florida home.
The department filed the motion to make public the warrant and receipt in light of the former president's public confirmation of the search, the surrounding circumstances, and the substantial public interest in this matter. Faithful adherence to the rule of law is the bedrock principle of the Justice Department and of our democracy. Upholding the rule of law means applying the law evenly, without fear or favor.
And CBS News senior investigative correspondent Catherine Herridge joins us now. Hi, Catherine. What are we expecting to learn from the search warrant if and when it's made public? And will that include the affidavit?
Search warrant, Tanya, is a very basic document. In my experience, it can just be a couple of pages. It tells you the basics, like the time frame for the search. It'll tell you the scope of the search, so physically where they want to search on the premises. It may give you some detail about what exactly they're looking for, and it will also have confirmation of probable cause. So in the best case scenario, we might get a window into alleged violations, such as the Presidential Records Act, mishandling of classified information, or possibly obstruction. In this case, an argument that failing to comply with the subpoena fully was an obstruction of the judicial process. The second record is what they call an inventory. That's sort of like a shopping list of what the FBI took, so often very basic. And based on our reporting here at CBS News, the inventory list is just that, a little vague on what was taken. So not the affidavit, which is really where all the juice is, all the details, to use a lack of a better term. That's a legal term, of course, for what the underlying evidence was that prompted a court to agree that there was probable cause.
Now, Catherine, our producers tell us that you were able to speak with former White House officials about, about how the former president handled classified material. I understand in the past there were concerns that this may have been a pattern, but in terms of these materials in particular and how those ended up at Mar-a-Lago, what did they tell you?
So a former White House official who was in some of these high-level briefings inside the Oval Office with then President Trump said it was pretty routine that as the briefing proceeded, President Trump would say, hey, can I get a closer look at that document or that satellite image or that chart? And then he might say, I'm just going to hang on to it for a little while so I can take a second look. And then it was really up to the aides to try and retrieve that document from him because they wanted to make sure it didn't get into his personal files versus the White House and the national security files, which are for the archives.
How unusual is that?
Yeah, that sounds
plausible, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's ask another question about what we're hearing about these reports that there could be some sensitive nuclear information, perhaps, in these boxes of documents. But let's talk about photos, right? So why would a photo, let's say, of a bomb site be considered sensitive material? Of course, if it reveals the location, that could be sensitive material. But are there other reasons?
Okay, so we're going to talk hypothetically because we've got to wait and see what exactly these documents are. But if you had a satellite image of a missile site, a nuclear test site, the aftermath of a bombing site, what that would reveal to an adversary because of the high resolution of the photo and also the aspect from which it was taken, the kind of satellite technology that the U.S. government has at its disposal. So sources, methods, and capabilities. And if the subject of that or the technology is sensitive, you could be looking at something that's called an SCI. This is sensitive compartmented information, or SAP, which is special access programs. And this is a level of classification that's, in fact, above top secret. They're kind of the crown jewels of the U.S. intelligence community. So it may just look like a picture to you and to me, but from an intelligence perspective, it can be that highly classified.
And according to, reporting from the Washington Post, and I understand Catherine and our colleagues in D.C. are looking into whether or not, in fact, the documents that were targeted in this search were related to nuclear weapons. But I want to shift gears just because there are 3 different Trump cases that we're looking at right now. A New York State judge says that the criminal tax and fraud case against the Trump organization and its former CFO can proceed. That was the news this morning. Jury selection will begin on October 24th. If you don't mind, Catherine, can you walk us through that case?
Well, to keep it as simple as possible, because this is a tax fraud case, and these are incredibly complex cases. They're basically paper and document-driven cases, right? The allegation here is that there was a lot of off-the-books compensation. And in this case, it means getting free apartments, free car services, other perks. And of course, from the IRS's perspective, this is all considered taxable income. And the allegation here is that they received this high compensation that was off the books. They didn't declare it, and therefore it was tax fraud. They did not pay the IRS what they were owed in their total compensation.
Well, the IRS is about to get quite the boost, and they'll be able to track issues like this one.
Want them calling you, that's for sure.
Catherine Herridge, thank you so much.
You're welcome.